Breathe in, keep your core tight, pull your shoulders back, push your hips back, exhale on the way up. Focus on a pace where the force plates look as even as possible. Hey everyone, and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to do something a little different than my normal how-to squat videos and spend a little bit more effort on discussing the coaching cues as well as pointing out some biomechanical deficiencies. An integral part to being a functional physiologist and a strength and conditioning coach is being able to observe these weaknesses and watch where these mechanical leverages tend to go away, because that's how we keep these athletes and participants healthy and in the gym. So the purpose of this video is to provide small amounts of movement analytics, or to give you a movement analysis of the squat, while also creating a narrative for coaching these athletes to prevent injury. You may have heard me instruct Nasty to breathe in and hold it while also keeping his trunk tight. Essentially, that's to increase abdominal compression, or to compartmentalize a lot of internalized pressure along the trunk, so during the movement the spine doesn't want to move as free, causing injury. A lot of trunk laxity is going to cause the spine to move around during both the concentric and eccentric phases, and that's where a lot of these participants, athletes, and tactical athletes end up injuring themselves, because they do not follow the two most primary or basic coaching cues. Retracting the belly button and breathing in as much as possible is going to help inflate the lungs to a near capacity, and by holding it throughout the exercise until I'd say about a quarter out of the pocket or during the ascent, when you should cue your athlete to release or to breathe out, exhale. Abdominal compression can be further aided in by using a resistance belt or a weight belt. I also noted Nasty to pull his shoulders to the rear, or pull them back. That's going to help expose the chest and keep it out. It's the same thing as saying it's chest out, but with a slight difference, and that has to do with the way how the brain perceives these cues. One, the elbows need to remain parallel with the back throughout the exercise. A lot of that has to do with making sure that the lats remain taut, and it helps lock the vertebrae from excessive movement. Again, further reducing the injury potential of the exercise. This next one is going to be a little more important than some of the rest. They all kind of work together in tandem, but in retrospect, this one tends to have more of the better benefit behind it. You probably heard me say push the hips backwards, or push his butt back, or towards the rear, or towards the wall, push your butt towards the wall. Those are all kind of cues that I would use to help the athlete understand that he's not bending at the knees. There's two things about Nasty I really want to point out. One, he really does prefer the back squat over the front squat. The other thing is, while he is back squatting, he's a high bar squatter. That has a lot to do with the amount of effort displaced among the hips rather than the knees. If he's not pushing his hips back far enough, one, the bar is going to trend forward of the knee, and that's going to cause a lot more effort during the ascension or concentric phases, but moreover, it's going to put a lot more torque across each of those vertebrae. Again, each of those vertebrae have to act as their own lever arms, meaning that each of those vertebrae have their own source of vulnerability and can cause injury. Another component that the strength and conditioning coach really needs to keep in the forefront of their mind is that while squatting, especially with Nasty in this video, is that free weight is bound by gravity, meaning that at any plane, that bar is always going to have a constant downward force applied to it, not just because of the weight, but because the gravity is literally trying to pull it down as well. Another point about pushing the hips to the rear is compensating for the medial knee cave that you've probably seen throughout this video too. Trust me, it could be a lot worse if the perspective is just to squat down rather than push your hips back. Throughout the movement, muscles are going to overcompensate for the weaker muscles. In this scenario, when we talk about the medial concave, that's when your adductors, your really big and long muscles called the hip adductors, they're going to want to force those knees to collapse. You want to have a preservation of that so you don't slip your knee joint or cause a shifting in the knee or the tibial plateau. The best way to do that, again, is by pushing the hips back. That's going to cause a stretch along the medial and minimal glutes, which are responsible for keeping those knees forced outward. So that's another benefit to instilling this cue of movement. You as the coach need to observe your participant when the acceleration out of the pocket increases or gets faster. That's when it's optimal for your athlete to release the pent-up tension or to exhale as forcefully as possible. This is also a point where a guttural yell can also help you increase your max by 110%. This helps offset two things. The first one is if you release it too early, the core can collapse and flex excessively at the spine, making you have to buckle over or dump the weight on your spot. That is relative across any weight. The other thing is if you don't exhale early enough or at the right moment, and you're retaining a lot of this internalized pressure, you're going to have what's called exertional rebound hypotension. That's where the room, once you finish the rep, starts spinning around, and you have to take a moment or put the weight down because you're having a hard time collecting yourself. Lastly, I want to point out two things about this. First is regressions. So that's essentially saying Nasty is working at 155 pounds at 8 reps. A regression would be simply doing another set of 155 pounds at 6 reps. Other areas of regression that you could probably apply to this would more or less be like your kettlebell squats, going from the Olympic stance as you see here with Nasty to a sumo squat kind of makes the movement a little easier. His hips won't drop as far, but it's going to place the bar in a better mechanical leverage for the hips and less torque along the vertebrae. And also probably doing goblet squats. It's just something to help prime the body again to go back into this type of effort. The other side of the story is progression. Okay, so this one's a little scary. I like to use a more pragmatic and complementary approach, a conservative approach, where I would take 10% of what Nasty is using now, not an additional 10% of what his 1 rep max or 5 rep max is, but 10% of what he's actively using at this moment. So he's using 155 pounds at 8 reps. I would go up 15 pounds to 170 and drop his rep volume to 5 or 6 reps. Alright everybody, that kind of finishes it up. My name is Andy again. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and check the bell icon as it pops up. That way you get new content as it comes out. This video was made in conjunction with both my work and my doctoral studies at Concordia University. So I get to marry up both the science and the practice at the same time. But nonetheless, it helps you as the audience pick up the fresh content and help break the mold of what the fads are trying to tell you. So if you enjoyed it, if you didn't, leave a comment down below and I will fix it for the next time. Thanks.